Before starting the session, we'll have a presentation from Cover Fox on pioneering a new era of financial protection by making microinsurance simple, scalable, and inclusive for all. So, requesting again, everyone, please come inside and please have your seat. We'll start our session now. Before we go to the panel discussion on human capital issues and challenges, we will request Mr. Sanjeev Jha, CEO and MD of CoverFox, to present a small presentation on pioneering a new era of financial protection by making microinsurance special, scalable, and inclusive for all. Now I request Mr. Sanjeev Jha to come on the stage.
Thank you. I was hoping that there will be larger audience, but theek hai, smaller the better. But I can see few people coming in, so I'll pause for about 10, 15, 20 seconds and then see whosoever joins. I run a company called CoverFox, but I've spent last 20 years trying to decipher and understand what is micro-lending. And I think I have come to Sa-Dhan after almost 9, 10 years now. Used to come earlier when, and the good thing is that Sa-Dhan is still at Ashok Hotel, as it used to be 20 years ago. So what we do at CoverFox is we are an insurance company. We insure people. But there is a direct correlation to what we do with the entire lending community that we have. And I'm sure some of you are practitioners of microfinance. Some of you are working in a microfinance company, or maybe a lender, or maybe an investor or someone, and you're all accustomed to the word borrower. So we know what is a borrower, but what we don't know is that India is the largest in the world borrower market among the underserved and under-penetrated community. And when I say largest, I was hearing Mr. Vijay Mahajan this morning, and he was giving some data. The fact of the matter is that out of the 140 crore population, if say we have a 35 crore households, over 20 crore households are underserved and under-penetrated. So we think that there is a lot to do with the word borrower, and we have successfully created the borrower market in the world, but we have not been successful in trying to give them savings and protection. That is what CoverFox actually does. So a lot might have happened in the last 7 days with some of the NBFCs getting notified by RBI to cease and desist. I would like to draw all of your attention on the 4 specific things that has happened across both the regulators, IRDA and RBI. The intention here of both the regulators is very simple. They want to ensure 2 things is actually disseminated at scale. One is that every borrower to whom you are lending, they must know what is the landed cost for them. The landed cost, unfortunately, is not only the processing fee and the interest on loan. It includes any and everything that actually ends up at the landing cost. Now what it means is that suppose if you have given a loan of 50,000 and you have reduced the insurance cost on that, then she is also paying interest on that. That is also part of the landed cost. Okay, so both the regulator have spent a great amount of time and have effectively come out with these 4 specific regulation, which is at the intersection of lending and insurance. You all know that the EOM guidelines actually came in April 23. It actually allowed all of us, and I'm using the word allowed, it allowed all of us to ensure that the money that the borrower is paying to you to insure the loan book is actually being recorded by the insurer and transfers back in a straight line. It doesn't go outside. Now that is all across the industry. It's not only across the group insurance business that you all sell, but it is all across the industry. Second is key fact statement, and at the same time, what is the landed cost, that is APR, right? Now key fact statement is a very important, which banks adopted a long time ago, and APR calculation, and at the same time there is a there is a very simple theory is that the optionality to buy cannot be at the hand of the distributor, it has to be in the hands of the consumer. Now, optionality to buy means that if suppose you are a consumer buying a car insurance, and in your case, your borrowers are buying life and health insurance to the tenure of the loan, right? Now, you are effectively not giving her an option to choose which the regulator wants you to do, okay? So a combination of all of this is where we are at sitting right now, and the intention is extremely clear. Intention is not that you reduce the cost only. Of course, you reduce the cost, but at the same time, it is important to calculate the landed cost to that individual, and that is why these regulations, even the cease and desist order, is directed towards that. These four are most important changes that has happened in the history of Indian insurance and micro lending in the country. This will change the dynamics how things are, and it will also ensure more transparency and more price effectiveness to the segment that you are catering to. I'll take one more minute and actually take you to the next slide. How do we go to the next one? Yeah. We realized it as an opportunity for us to play a role with all of you. We have been in existence for the last 13-14 years. We have 3 other businesses, but the business that we are doing at the cross section of lending as well as insurance is only little more than 12 months old for us. In the past 12 months, we have solved a significant part of this problem that most of you would be facing. We have brought in technology platform which enables you to present the various insurance as well as non-insurance products that you can actually show it to your borrower, which they can choose and buy. We are India's first co-insuring company. Now, what is co-insuring is that, which you probably don't know, the money that you actually collect from the borrowers for insurance is collected upfront. The claims happens over a period of 3 years' time. There is a huge amount of the entire collection that actually goes and sits as cash reserve with the insurers. Okay. Now that is a cost. That is almost, and the market today is over 60,000 crores in group credit life. Almost 25% of that sits in the treasury of the insurer. We have been able to bring that cost or that money to the borrowers to whom you lend and reduce the price. Okay, we cover, and this data is slightly incorrect, we have in the last 12 months covered little more than 2 million people. We not only cover your credit book, but we cover the life of the borrower beyond the credit period at a cost price which is significantly lower and the lowest in the country, lower than Government of India. Okay. So that's our capability of what we have done. We are little closer to 300 crores in GWP in this segment, which effectively means that we are covered approximately 10,000 crores of loan book in the last 12 months. And at the same time, what we have been significantly able to do is that we have been able to create a digital interface to you so that you can deal with the compliance, pricing, as well as transparency to your borrowers. That's what we do. We have a lot of people from CoverFox in this conference today. We'll be very happy to participate. We don't want you to feel short of not having solutions around technology as well as insurance. And one key highlight that I want to tell you is that, and that's how I started by saying that why are we calling them borrowers? Now the problem is that there is no savings product that you all can actually sell. None of you are deposit taking NBFCs. At best you can bring in mutual funds. It is regulated by SEBI. There is no price of mutual funds which is less than 500 rupees. We have been able to bring insurers to underwrite saving products which ranges from 50 rupees to 1000 rupees, and the collections are daily, weekly, bi-monthly and monthly. Flexibility of withdrawn is not as rigid as any mutual fund. The flexibility with respect to a guaranteed sum insured, guaranteed principal insured, guaranteed rate of interest, and at the same time guaranteed life coverage which is not linked with the insurance is something which we have been able to bring to the market. And we believe a combination of insurance as well as technology as well as working extremely closely with you and bringing savings will dramatically change the lives of those borrowers, and consequently it will save a lot of hassles to deal with two regulators at the same time. I'd like to pause, and if there are any questions, happy to take. Otherwise, we are good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev, for this informative presentation. Now we will start our panel discussion. For our panel discussion, I will now invite our moderator, Mr. Sohan Tulpule, Managing Director of PWC, on the dais. Now I will request our speakers to come on the dais. Mr. Nirupam Mehrotra, Director, Bankers Institute of Rural Development, BIRD. Ms. Purvi Bhavsar, co-founder and MD of Pahal Financial Services Private Limited. Mr. Biswa Ketan Das, CEO, Indian Institute of Banking and Finance, IIBF. Mr. Jagadish Ramadugu, MD and CEO of Pragati FinservMr. Mr. George Thomas, EVP-HR, ESAF Small Finance Bank. Now I'm handing over this to our moderator, Mr. Sohan Tulpule.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Great to see the interested audience turning up in Hall 3. So thanks a lot for your keen interest in HR related area. So what we'll do is there is a, as you all would have seen the name of this topic, which talks about understanding core HR challenges in the space of microfinance, and what are some of the solutions and interventions that we as HR professionals can plan to curb those. So that's the broad topic that we have. Now, one way to look at this topic is, while it's an HR topic, if we were to look at the impact that it is going to have, so you can imagine all the workforce that is working across 650 plus districts that we have in India. And if we look at overall employees, so direct employment that let's say microfinance offers across MFIs, small finance banks, some of the public sector banks, RRBs and so on. So easily few lakhs of employees are basically going to be affected by any interventions that we plan to take out basis this discussion. So I think the issue is very serious in nature. We will need to understand what are those challenges that we are facing as a sector, and we as professionals, how we can address that effectively. So that's the broad context in which we want to tackle today's discussion. In the note of this particular session, you would have seen there are some topics that have been called out. So we will be definitely talking about attrition. There are a few other topics like training, which also becomes very critical in terms of microfinance employees. So those are broadly the areas that we'll be covering. I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Sohan and have been working in HR consulting space for around 14 years. Have predominantly worked across HR transformation assignments, right from engagement, attrition, org structuring, KRA, KPIs, rewards, and so on. So end-to-end HR transformation is something that I have done most of my life, I would say. And this will be a very interesting and engaging topic for all of us. I'll try and bring in more real-life examples to make it more relatable. So that's a brief about me. So what we'll do is we'll start with the first question that we have for our esteemed panelists, and maybe all of you can chip in and you can quickly introduce yourself also while responding to that question. So as we know, the topic at hand is understanding HR challenges. So maybe I'll ask all the esteemed panelists on this specific question point blank, that if you were to identify top 2 to 3 challenges that we face as MFI in HR, what would those challenges be? And then we can take it from there.
Thank you at the outset. Let me thank Sa-Dhan and the organizers for giving this opportunity. I am Dr. Nirupam Mehrotra. I work with NABARD as a Chief General Manager. Presently, in the current capacity, I am in the Bankers Institute of Rural Development, which is formed by NABARD. It's owned by NABARD. We have our own independent, but it is formed as a society. And we are into, Bankers Bird is into capacity building and training of rural financial institutions, including the FPO space. And it's been there for now 40, 45 years, almost close to that. And it's a very nice campus there. Yeah, coming to what you asked, and before I get into this, let me sort of pose one or two, not questions, but in a way, just to provoke the whole issue of HR. The whole issue of HR in microfinance institutions presently, which is going through, actually, are we missing the trees for the woods? Is it the HR, if I don't want to use the word crisis, but it is no short of that in terms of the trainings that we do in world, a lot of microfinance institutions come in, is it being born out of the business model or the model that it is being followed? And that's sort of showing it up in some phase in the HR front. So just that was one of the things. Another thing is that the theme of the conference is very apt, driving sustainable development through inclusive finance, obviously. But has the time now come to do this, because ultimately it will delve upon the microfinance institutions. Does HR in microfinance institutions need to be more inclusive? If they are, so unless the HR front, it doesn't become inclusive. Why attrition? I am sure the numbers are there. What the Sa-Dhan report and the MFIN report that I have gone through, the attrition is of the level of around 60 percentage plus, that's the attrition that is, if numbers help. And most of this attrition, if you break it down, it is at the field level and at the lower level. And most of the microfinance institutions are basically touch driven. And that means if the field level and the officers and the field level staff, if there is something wrong with that HR issues in them, then it is surely going to show up, and which it is in terms of the model. Now, if specifically if you ask, I am sure that anybody who is here would be in a better position to give a laundry list of the HR issues. But let me, since you asked two things. One is obviously the turnover ratio is so fast. Second, at the cost of being little more provocative, and I think these are always said, coming from a training and a capacity building institutions, I get that little bit of a leeway to take this liberty that whenever our participants from the microfinance institutions, we are interacting, one of the things which comes out very clearly is not only the turnover, but there is a lot of poaching that happens in a vast category of this thing. If these are the two, why I am highlighting the poaching aspect in terms of ki puri team hi chali gayi first, and it is such a high turnover, this thing is because as a collective, this is where I think that there is a role for a SRO. I am sure that in terms of staff retention, that is another thing, but I will leave it to the other panelists to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Nirupam ji. I think fair point and quite relevant point raised. I'll request all the panel members to pitch in with their views, and we can continue.
Hello. Yeah, thank you. One more institute which is now engaged in capacity building and banking and finance sector. I am CEO, Indian Institute of Banking and Finance. Those who are from BFSI sector, they will be knowing the capacity building courses which we offer, including the mandated courses by RBI. Two courses which I also point out here, the course of DRA, Debt Recovery Agents, and BCs, which are similar to the functions as MFIs. The courses have been mandated by RBI and we are the sole certifying agency. Before coming to the key issues of MFI issues, I will touch upon three things. What are the three variables of any MFI? The first is the society as a whole, where they work, particularly the lower strata of society. Then the microfinancial institution itself, which have grown. Some of them have grown to small finance banks, some of them are still continuing with the microfinance activities. The third and most important part is the employees of the microfinance institution. And employees, how do we retain or how do we attract the employees? The first problem which I guess here is the skill gap. Skill gap of the employees in microfinance institution, that need to be immediately bridged. Most of the people they are recruiting are raw in nature from different colleges. They are coming here without any formal training, and perhaps they get the training, initial training for few days, but the model of industry has changed. It is not only the banking finance, it is also part of Atal Pension Yojana, mutual funds as I was telling. So is he aware of all the aspects of the industry so that he can interact with the customer? That is the one thing which I feel the skill gap is the main thing. The second part is the shortage of the young candidates here. If you see the Gen Z, millennials, they have lot of scope now. So are they choosing microfinance as one of the careers? If not, then what we need to do to attract the new generation here? Because the scopes are enormous now. Last year, if you see, IT has recruited close to 60,000 and BFSI sector has recruited more than 2 lakhs. That is the study, right? So if this many numbers are being attracted by the BFSI sector, microfinance being one of the sectors, how much it is able to attract? The third part is the retaining. When we talk of retaining, then it comes the many other parts, including your hygiene factor, including your motivating factor. So as rightly said by doctor, that attrition is too high. But have you tried to look into why the attrition is too high? Right, that's the thing. And the other part is the people management in the microfinance itself by the industry as a whole and companies in particular. What type of resources they are utilizing, what type of people management policies they are adopting to attract and retain. I think these are the few issues which plague the microfinance industry presently, and going forward we will also see how it can be rectified. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I think fairly put forward. I think attrition, retention, skill gap and attracting EVP, I think very relevant points discussed so far. Moving on to Jagadish, and if you can give your point of view.
Thanks, Sohan. I think my name is Jagadish Ramadugu. I am the MD and CEO of Pragati FinservMr, which is a part of the Northern Capital Group. I think my esteemed panel members have already from Institute of Banking and Bird have already spoken about a conceptual framework of what they think are the issues from the training side. I'll come from a practitioner's perspective and I'll share with you some of the practical issues what I find so on the ground. The core concept of microfinance is scalability and productivity. Right? We are distributing small-sized ticket loans. Therefore, it is very important for us to build the appropriate scale and the productivity to be in the market. Right? Otherwise, the reason why microfinance has been successful in India versus many parts of the world is because I think the early companies in the microfinance space have built a model which allowed us to be scalable and sustainable and productive, therefore offering at a much lower interest rate compared to some of the African or the other Latin American countries, etc. Now that is under stress at this point of the challenge I see right now is that. And where the challenge is coming from? Point number one, if you look at the productivity, right? Scalability has already been built in through improvements in technology over the last 3 years, 4 years. Right? All of us have invested in significantly in technology and various process improvements, etc. But as far as the productivity is concerned, I think already my colleagues have talked about attrition. But capability building, right, is one of the key reasons why we are failing in terms of productivity. Attrition is the second challenge, which again leads to loss of productivity. So if I look at what is causing the productivity loss, it is basically these two issues. One side you have a capability building issue, and second side you have an attrition issue, and both actually are interlinked. Higher attrition leads to more need for capability building because the average vintage of the employees in microfinance sector is less than 12 months. I'm talking about the front line, right? And you're seeing attritions in the range of 60% in this segment, the frontline segment. At the branch manager mid-level segment, it's 30% and it's 20% at the senior level. So when you see this sort of an attrition and so much of change management, right? I think that's where it is both the attrition and the capability building are interlinked.
Yeah.
And in the environment that we're currently facing, the key challenge is HR costs, which is manpower cost, is almost 75-80% of the total cost for any microfinance organization, right? And when you see this cost going up because your productivity is falling, it definitely financially impacts all of our sustainability and survivability. So therefore, I think the key HR challenges that we are facing right now are not just good to face challenges or small challenges, but they are actually quite serious at this point of time.
Thank you. Thanks, Jagadish, for that. Requesting George to pitch in.
My name is George Thomas. I have been working with the voluntary sector about 4 years, then in government sector 14 years, and with microfinance and small finance bank maybe around 20 years. This attrition, as every one of the panelists mentioned, this is a reality. This is going to happen, and this will happen. When it compares to IT and all, someone was saying that you are in a very safe place, because in IT you can see 40 to 50% of attrition. And here in BFSI sector, we see 5% to 40% of attrition. So this is a reality. So why this is so much causing microfinance is that, especially the field level people, we know that they are the real connect to the people. And they know in and out of maybe 400 to 500 customers, and they know the geographical locations. So these are some of the reasons, once they leave, that will really cause any institution. But in that regard, there are I have felt is the 3 reasons for this. One is better opportunity. People will have a lot of options for choosing for other, now even I heard, just before coming here, some of the people, manufacturing, companies are now targeting microfinance field level people because they are very smart. Now why they should go here and there and spend a lot of time wandering here and there? They can be in the company for maybe in the same place if they train them, and they are very good in getting trained also. So once they train, they will be, it is a very good congenial environment they can work in. So, opportunities are so great. And, someone who is in Kerala like state, someone who is a sales girl or a salesman can be in an air-conditioned situation, maybe even for 12 hours, they don't mind sitting there. So this is a reality, this is going to happen. And it will cost us heavily. But, what kind of working environment we are creating for the people is something very, very crucial. I think 10 years ago, we have brought out, Sa-Dhan itself have brought out a book on this, what kind of environment, what kind of ecosystem we are building for this workforce is something going to decide on how this attrition or how we are going to check those things. That is very, very important. Second aspect, many are leaving because of the genuine reasons. Personal commitment to your family, maybe for their, maybe for children's study and things like, dislocations. These are some of the hard but very, very personal reasons. And it is also responsibility of the institution to see that these personal things are also being attended, so that they will have a congenial personal level of loyalty towards the organization. So these are some of the things which I think about the attrition. Thank you.
Thanks, George. So I think at the, yes.
Okay, I'm the last one to go for a change.
Please.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. This is not the subject that, people generally prefer to discuss, or, because you don't want to talk a lot of things in public. So at the cost of being judged, I have very different views on certain things related to HR. First of all, The problem is, I think, is within this room, I would say. You know, as senior management, as CEOs, as founders, co-founders, as somebody who is supposed to be a change maker, as a country, we want to go on the Mars, we want to go on the moon, we want driverless cars, but we expect that our borrower will sit in that same gola and come for meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning. They have been coming for last 10 years and they'll continue to come for another 10 years. We expect our staff to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, whether it is, you know, extreme heat, rains, winter, whatever. We expect that they will behave in the same fashion. The world will change, but our customers and our staff will not change. If we continue to see things with the same old glasses, you will see a huge problem. And the kind of reasons that we always end up finding is working hours ज़्यादा है, उसको खाना नहीं मिल रहा है, उसको बहुत travel करना पड़ता है. You know, we will end up getting the same answers because we are looking at this problem with the same old lens. We don't want to change the way we look at things. So first of all, I think as entrepreneurs, as founders, as decision makers, there is a need to change the way we look at this entire situation. How we want to service our customers. Is there any better way of servicing the customer? या फिर अभी भी 6 बजे सुबह जाओ, 7 बजे जाओ, 8 बजे जाओ, दोपहर जाओ, you know, you want to continue to do the same thing. Because we have moved from Nokia, Asha wala, वो model से high-tech phones, but we still want our process to be the same. We don't want to change anything. And if we do not change, I think the problem is going to remain and it is only going to get worse from what it is. Because particularly the new generation, like when I was a branch manager and when I got back from my maternity leave, I still used to work from 8 to 8. I worked for 12 hours. I was working for one of the largest private sector bank and I did not complain even once. But can I expect the same thing from my people today? The times have changed, the way people work has changed, the expectations have changed. So it is very important that we realign everything, the way we are doing things, the way we are doing the business. Is there a better way of doing the same thing? More efficient, more employee friendly, more use of technology. So I think that is one part of it, that the change has to come from this room. And we will have to change. We don't have an option because this is impacting us big time in terms of increased cost because the attrition is so high, losing connect with the customers, being at the risk since we handle so much of cash, we are always at a risk. So there is a huge, you know, I think there is a need to change. Secondly, from the employee point of view, nobody talks about this and I don't know why we always shy away from this. Microfinance companies are like 70% in the rural areas and historically we have been like there. In the villages where we are offering the jobs, what is the other job opportunity that these people have? What is the next best option? If they don't come to work at microfinance, the next best option is going and working in a field, being a farm laborer or going for Manrega, starting a small petty shop which does not offer any sort of a security of you know, earning or how they are going to feed their families. So, and we are a country which is possibly one of the youngest population that we have. We have a huge burden. If we are able to use these people productively, we are going to reach at a very different level. But if we are not able to employ them productively, it is going to become a burden for us. So what is the option or the opportunity for the people that we are talking about in the rural areas? So can we also create some sort of an awareness, also sort of, you know, pulling people from each other's organization? Can we do something, you know, from the SRO point of view where we set some rules right, we come up with new models, the newer ways of working? So that was my perspective on the attrition.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So I think that definitely sets the context right in terms of what are those challenges and what I was doing while we all were discussing. I think there are 6-7 things that we broadly touched upon and let's do deep dive on some of them as necessary during the course of this interaction. So we did all of us agree that attrition is one of the biggest problems. We also talked about some of the root causes of the attrition and I'll talk something more on that in terms of recent projects that we had done for some of the microfinance organizations and the findings of those. We also talked about retention, how is again an area that we have to look at. Skill gap and capability building, like we mentioned, and linked to that is the productivity angle. How can we enhance that? Attracting the talent and creating an EVP for various age groups, especially Gen Zs. Managing the HR cost, again related to the productivity and attritions that we have. And the last point was predominantly looking at this from more slightly differently in terms of creating a inclusive work environment space for all employees to work in. Now on the attrition, I think this is the core area of discussion for this particular 1 hour that we had scheduled. What I'll do is I'll highlight some of the points that we had discovered through one of the recent projects that we had done for one of the microfinance institutes. A problem set in was to do a in-depth attrition analysis. That was the only work which was given to us. And we actually ended up speaking to 500 people who had left the organization. We called them up, understood that what was the challenge for attrition. So I'll give some of the insights in terms of what emerged, and please feel free to add on if something specific in your organizations had happened and any specific, I would say, interventions helped to reduce that. So compensation, as we all know, is always one reason that due to which people would leave. And especially at that space, very, very minor change in comp increase offered by someone else might lead to attrition. But linked to compensation, we saw a few interesting insights in terms of various reimbursements that get. So fuel reimbursement or any other reimbursements that they are supposed to get. The degree of transparency and I would say ease of process in which they can avail that can also at that level help them to enhance the overall engagement level at that level and help them monetary also. So that was one part that we looked at. So in many cases, we saw cases where there were false promises made that you will be, let's say, promoted in next year, and then that didn't happen. So typically, this is something that is not very, very specific to microfinance, but yeah, that also came out as one of the interesting findings that we had. Work pressure was also talked about by some of the respondents in terms of area that's causing the attrition. There were also concerns as we talked about the overall workplace and inclusivity. At that level, it also depends on how my branch manager is behaving with me. There were a lot of behavioral issues that also we found out in terms of the way employees are treated by a particular person. So there have to be certain, I would say, cultural interventions that were required at the client to enhance that. And the last part again linked to compensation was incentive and clarity of incentives, that how am I getting incentivized, and if I'm not getting incentive, is the answer just given that aapka file pass nahi hua or ye nahi hua. So clarity on that, and then frequency of incentives. So these all were, I would say in a nutshell, were some of the reasons of attrition for the engagement that we had done. And for each of these reasons, there would be specific interventions that each and every organization would look at. So all of you who are here, I think these are some of the laundry list, and I think you could relate to many of those. You would have seen those yourselves. But depending on what is the severity in your organization, I think that's something that you might want to take up. So I'll just address it to panel now, that specifically focusing on attrition, any specific root causes that you have looked at or any specific interventions that you have implemented, we'll be happy to understand from you all. And we can go in, yeah, yes sir.
Sohan, you have, in a way, the study that you have mentioned or has parts of, I think, whatever was to be told in terms of, yes, all of these or some of these are factors there. But I would like to give another metrics, and that is where I again take the discussion back or rather forward from where George Thomas ji and Madam Purvi has mentioned. I think the solution also lies in this room, and the problem, because the problem lies in this room in many ways. The metrics is this. This study, I need, please be free to have any other data point on that. actually on attrition, if we break it down into large MFIs, small MFIs and medium MFIs, I was surprised to see that the large MFI attrition is higher by at least 20% more than the small and the medium MFIs. And that's quite a large number. It means we are talking about attrition of 60 if for large and then this. Now, if that is so the case, we always think that the wherewithal will be there on a larger MFI in terms of systems and processes and controls and a proper HR environment. Then why is the attrition higher in there? The point about good opportunities lie up. To top it up, another metric is that, or rather data point, that people who have left the MFI sector, this is a small study, it may have its own biases, but it definitely gives a direction of the trend. That after leaving one MFI, where has that person gone? Almost 60% or rather 57% who were interviewed, they said they went and joined another MFI. It's not that they have left the sector as such. So there is a sort of a internal, and only around 10 to 12% went to some other sector in terms of the gig economy and all that. We definitely have to get this problem of attrition really deep, and I think that is where I think the whole effort of the HR. Obviously, you mentioned it in some ways. Another reason for attrition, at least at the field level, and that is the major. Rather in the probation level, the attrition is around 76 to 78%. So you can imagine, Biswa ji had just launched a course with this thing so very timely. Hope it has its effect. But the moment you have such a matrix, you need to really, and I think communication on the HR thing internally is a big issue. We get a lot of this thing on the field that communication happens, and it only happens with regard to only targets and collections. भाई उसके ऊपर की दुनिया भी है. Ultimately वो HR के एंगल से आपको देखना है how you increase the belongingness and motivation of the employees. Are there any examples of this? I would reserve my thing, but you can, as an analogy, go through the attrition rates that some of the private sector banks had in, say, 2 to 3 years before. They have come down. Is there a lesson for that? I will leave it for that for some other time to get into it. But definitely, manual processes, still EKYC nahi hai. This is a, आपके CGTs and GQTs करने हैं. Go to the collection center. These are the root causes of inflation. Sorry, if I've taken a little more time.
Yeah, I think the mic is there at a few places. Anyone can pitch in if anyone wants to,
so,
in terms of,
So I think very interesting point that Dr. Mehrotra was talking about, that the attrition is larger in the larger organizations. I think all large organizations have fantastic HR systems, HR technologies, very, very well qualified HR managers, strong HR programs. The attrition is highest there. I think that's the core of where probably we have not touched upon. Compensation issues, competition, operating challenges have been there forever. It's not that the microfinance employee is getting up today at 6:30.
Yeah.
It was always the case even 4 years back. It was always the case 10 years back. Competition, compensation, small increase in compensation, they were always vulnerable. I think what changed is the engagement and the respect for the employees. I think current context, I think the fact that there is a push was a way a pull. Earlier, the loan officer was actually selecting clients. The branch manager was selecting clients. He was the giver, right? Today, he is pushing his product because of the situation of where all of us are target driven and all of us are actually trying to, whether we like it or not, that's been the situation for the last year or so, maybe a little bit more than that. And then, therefore, the respect of the loan officer from the customer side is very, very less.
Yeah.
The bhav that you get, that's a big positive energy that they were getting. Today, it's actually, when they go for collection, they get a lot of stress. So I think that's one contextual issue currently that we are seeing for the high attrition. But I think a larger issue is the engagement. I think there's an emotional issue which probably the smaller organizations are better addressing in terms of treating them better rather than as impersonal numbers, as an employee ID vis-a-vis as a person. Maybe that's probably one of the things which I think, and you're right, a lot of times communications have been focused on numbers and collections and things. Whereas actually when they are under stress, you should be doing more engagement activities, maybe getting them to relax. But today the work-life balance is completely gone. Like I was just talking to someone, 10 years back, people would never take leave, but because they were staying in the branch. Like for example, in my organization, we have absolutely a policy that nobody will stay in the branch. And we don't hire anyone more than 30 kilometers away from the base branch. A very different position from what the typical microfinance is evolved. But we thought that would at least give a better work-life balance. I think that the emotional balance of not being able to meet your family when they need, staying hundreds of kilometers away from the family is taking a toll. And I think smaller organizations which have smaller footprint are much closer geography are managing these employee aspects better.
Yeah. Two aspects here. When we talk of attrition, this retention is also has to be looked into very carefully. So attrition is only, all others have said that the scope which people are getting outside this MFI sector. But what Dr. Director was telling that most of them also are joining back to the MFI sector. Then where the other parties, if you see the new generation which are coming up for the employment, there is a particular shift in their mindset. Earlier, it used to be the security of the job. Subsequently, the next the decade, if you see till 2010, maybe, it is the money, the salary, which used to attract the people. Now in this present generation, particularly post-COVID, it is the experience of the job which is being vied for by the millionaires. Whether you are giving that type of experience in the job, are they getting satisfied? So for that matter, if you see the retention part, if you see the hygiene factor also, whether the relationship with peers, relationship with your boss, relationship with your leadership, how it works out, or the policies of the company, is it conducive? Then comes your salary and other benefits. It's okay. But the other part is the motivation factor. Are you getting the recognition? Are you getting the satisfaction of that in your job? Or the getting any job opportunities here, growth opportunities? So if you have more these motivational factors, more hygiene factors, then your retention will be more. If the hygiene factor is a little less, even then if the motivational factors are more, then it will be retention, attrition will be less. But both, if you are not working, then you will have the attrition for sure.
Perfect. I think very well covered. I think we did discuss quite a lot of root causes that would result in attrition, and a lot of interventions that we as HR professionals and business leaders need to think about to manage that attrition. I think that everything really helps. I'll move on to another topic that we discussed some time back, which was skill gap and capability building. Now, linked to attrition, because when we are having a lot of backfills which are coming in on a monthly basis, a lot of energy would go in making them trained and skilled at that par, because they have to again start performing at the earliest at that level. Again, otherwise it will lead to the productivity loss. So, are there any different or new initiatives being taken by MFIs as far as skill and capability building? So, we'll be happy to get any insights from the panels on that. Yes. Yeah, anyone can go. You can go, Biswa sir.
Okay. So, capacity building, let me take the first set here. When we have talked of the capacity building, basically, what we have seen here, it can be divided into three parts. We call it the ASK model. You have the attitude part, then you have the skill, then you have the knowledge part. Okay. So here, when you create the attitude, whether he is capable of handling the stress, strain in the rural areas, whether you are giving that type of attitudinal training to them that he has to work under these circumstances. And in the society, when he is working to the bottom of the society, he has to undergo so many different conditions, difficult conditions also.
Yes.
Then coming part of the skill part, which is more important. Now the model has changed. Microfinance institutions are growing in various things. and they are also slowly diversifying into other areas, including selling of mutual funds, the insurance products, whether the person himself is capable. What you are saying that, what is the rate of interest, what are the regulatory guidelines. So all these things are whether the person here working at the ground level is able to do that. So one of the reasons which in the morning, if you have seen that we have unveiled a book for the people who want to join the microfinance or those are just join the microfinance institutions to give the brief overview of the microfinance units. So when you say that, whether he knows about the industry, he knows about the society, whether he knows about what he is expected to do. So all these things comes under the capacity building. And we have to build the capacity, and the McKinsey says that if you have a trained person, capable person, right, the productivity is 5 times. Right? So in the process, whether he is competent, whether he is productive, whether he is a professional, all these things has to be done when we have the capacity.
Yeah. Understood, fair point. From an implementation point of view, are there
I
any...
just want to say
please.
something on the implementation to just take forward what he's just mentioned. So what we are doing is while we continue to do a lot of classroom trainings, because that's a very traditional way of training the people, and it also makes sense that, at least they should come to the regional office and be in the classroom and go through the basics first. But we have also built a very interesting platform, which is, we have named it as Pahal Pathshala, where we keep a lot of soft copy content on that platform. Also, we create our own videos. So, as and when there is a new product launch, or there is a change in the process, or there is anything, change in technology. For example, we have introduced a new application for the tracking or HR related application. So, we create videos and we upload it on the Pathshala. That makes life very easy, because this Gen Z, they are very, very comfortable going to any application and learning by themselves at their own time and at their own convenience. And also we are doing training sessions which are like mandatory. So for example, every Saturday we do 2 hours training session for area managers, and we pick up any subject that is very relevant in the market. So using technology to reach out to more number of people more frequently and more rigorously is what we are trying to create. We are using that same platform for sharing stories, connecting, like it's a Facebook for the employees. So they can connect with each other, they can talk to each other. We upload a lot of books that they can read. We upload a lot of articles, we do a lot of quiz on that application. So it is like a full stack application.
Yeah. Excellent. Yes, George.
Yeah, as far as this training is concerned, what we feel induction training and capacity building is on the job. Second one is, these are the 2 important ones. Induction, many times we don't take it very seriously. I mean, that is the time staff is joining the organization, and the ethos of the organization, core values of the organization. And someone, a top management should be able to address them. That's what I felt. Because, they must be able to, though they may be doing a small job in a community, they must be able to see the big picture, that there is a significance, there is impact, even if what they are making people access into the financial services. It is not a small job. So that induction should be very thoroughly planned, formulated, and implemented. Second aspect of this, the methodology which we are taking, as Purvi madam said, this is very, very important. Many times, we think that a monologue is very effective, but it will not. So what we are adopting is that almost 70% of role play, case studies, maybe the video and things like that. That is the another aspect which. Third would be the effective way of, training would be, of course, now many times we think of a push kind of a training. We have a training program, you come and join. But it should be a pull kind of a training program where, people will be interested to join. Like she said, we also have got a e-platform, e-learning platform where almost 160 topics are there. So people can access and do that. So that way, on the job. And another aspect should be the shadow training. Give them a responsibility and let them function for some time in the same, maybe 1 week or one month. And that would be more effective. So I think training is something very, very important. It is actually not training, I would say it's a capacity building.
Yeah. Fair point. I think all points are quite apt in especially this context when the attrition is on a higher side. I think technology-led training, and like George mentioned, it has to be a pull training. So the onus is basically on us to create modules which are as engaging as possible. Maybe we can look at micro-learning and various other modes of training delivery to make it as again engaging, and completion rates would definitely be higher in that case. So that's definitely something that we can think about as far as the learning and capacity building is concerned. We also discussed a couple of more points earlier, and I would maybe pick up this because we just discussed how we can maybe leverage technology in training part. When we look at technology, and maybe I'll address it to Jagadish, any specific new initiatives that you see in micro-learning space, that you want to elaborate?
Yeah, of course, I think some of my colleagues, both George and Purvi, have talked about technology-enabled training, content, self-learning, self-pull training, etc. But I think the core technology use in microfinance, especially in the people space, is in terms of compensation, salary, the payrolls, the HR management system, leave and attendance. I think a lot of improvements have happened at least in the major companies in terms of implementing proper system. A self-service portal, because when you have such large number of employees, it's very difficult to respond in real time. So chatbots and implementation of chatbots which help answer their queries in terms of their compensation or salaries. Very high level of clarity in terms of incentive compensation. Ability to display the incentives in real time, what they have earned, the calculation methodology, etc. That's something which we have implemented. For the frontline microfinance employee is a very simple person. He wants clarity.
Yes.
He wants clarity. He wants instant resolution. It's very difficult for him to reach someone in corporate office because of the money layers of people in between, right? And everyone is busy with various other things. So the first and foremost important aspect is the proper HRMS system. I think that's the most important system, followed by, I think, the training aspects which people are talking about. And I think a lot of control risk management tools have come in, like in terms of ability to monitor, using technology to improve the route management of loan officers, improve their understand what sort of time are they wasting on giving data back to them so they can re-optimize their routes. So some of these things is something which I think is evolving. I think the basic HRMS is common. The training in HRMS is becoming quite common.
Yeah.
I think a lot more things are coming in the way of optimization of the business.
Sure. Thanks, Jagadish. I just wanted to pick up the last point that you talked about on the route optimization. So we had a few cases earlier that we use geofencing, geotagging and mechanisms to track the employees. And in one of my past clients' example, it was not MFI, but in a financial institution. Finally, it was a huge debate that we ended up into in terms of, are we invading the privacy of employee by having all these tools built in terms of which route is being taken, what is the time per visit and so on. But finally, and I'll just summarize here as to how maybe we can think about it. These are all tools for optimizing the productivity. And as long as employees communicated that this is something that is being done for betterment of overall organization, it's always a welcome step. And it's a good feedback for employee also as to how the employee can actually optimize the work that he or she is doing. So these new age tools with right sensitivity and communication will definitely work wonders in terms of increasing productivity as well as many other aspects in HR. So yeah, I think broadly we did cover about incentives earlier. Just wanted to come to the last part of this particular discussion, that what role we as an SRO could play in terms of enhancing the MFI. So Purvi did talk about some of the aspects in terms of what SROs can do. I think one of the aspects that got discussed here was building a strong employee value proposition as to attracting talent, especially new age talent, to MFI space. So I think this is again one area that SROs can think about as to how their involvement could be increased. But would again, request panelists to pitch in as to how SROs can actually help improve the HR capital.
I think this is very important to buttress the, that training, upskilling, learning and development, they can be seen as a strategy to increase retention. That is something which actually many organizations and many sectors have done so. And there is enough empirical evidence to show that if you give the employee chance for upskilling, and if that comes through, then that employee stays with the organization and does not leave the organization. This as a frame has to be done in some ways with the help of technology, but in an old-fashioned way. I know many of the MFIs, the larger ones, are better placed in terms of their training setup and in terms of inductions, something George Saab also said, there is need for seriousness. But as a frame, the old-fashioned way of doing training, there has to be a training policy. I'm sure if there are none, then it has to commit. There has to be a need assessment, and that is where the performance gap and the skill gap gets assessed. Then you design the program, then you do this thing, and it comes as a sort of a rolling stock. Just to highlight the fact, I'm sure the size of the sector is so much, and if it has to go forward, is there any, many like banks have their own training establishment, DFIs have, RRBs have their now own training establishment. When they started off, they didn't have. Okay, but does the MFI sector have a flagship training establishment of its own? I think the time has come for that, and it is there. In Bird, we do a training of around 50 programs. Happy to have NABARD sponsor most of those programs, in fact. But what is the this thing we are able to touch? Nothing. There are 1.72 lakh employees, if I am not mistaken, in the MFI sector. So if you do those 50 programs and if you do the maths, it's hardly a pittance. But yes, technology has to be used, but technology has to be used in a frame. It cannot be sporadic, and it is there, I think, the SROs needs to engage, and it is, I think, for the development of this sector, this is very, very important. And that is what I wanted to just say.
Yeah, just I think. So when these MFIs, they want to expand, two things which will decide how do they expand. One is the competition. Now MFIs will have the competition as from RRBs also, from small finance banks also, and some NBFCs also. The second part is the digital transformation. These two things will decide how the entire model will work out. To that extent, SROs will have a very, very large role to play here. What are the HR best practices in the industry, within the industry and outside the industry, whether they can bring in the best practices, whether it is employee retention, whether it is training, whether it is capacity building, but that leading role they have to take. And the second part is the benchmarking. The SROs has to benchmark themselves the industry-wise also, within the industry, outside the industry. Take the case of benchmarking whether the training requirement of BCs, which has been mandated by RBI, training and certification. DR is also mandated by RBI, training certification, whether here also there is a need to benchmark the functioning of these MFI people, again, like BCs and DRs, whether some type of industry lobby we can create for the capacity building and other things. So I think these are the two things where SROs will be now required to play a bigger role.
Sure. Thank you. So I think we did look at training establishment, EVP building, and benchmarking and leading practices. I think very relevant points for SROs to take up. So I think broadly this is what we wanted to discuss with you all. We did talk about attrition. We covered all other points in terms of incentives, training, and what role basically we as SROs would like to take. Now, I'll open for questions, and we'll be happy to address some of your questions. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. First of all, My congratulations to all of you, the panel speakers, for an excellent session on human capital. And let me introduce myself. My name is Rajendra Pal Singh, and my professional background is not microfinance. It's actually law enforcement. I am DGP retired from Uttar Pradesh, but now in an advisory role with some of the microfinance companies. And I'm thankful to Mr. Menon for having invited me over for the 2 days conference at Delhi. So I've traveled from Lucknow especially to attend and be with you all today. What I have seen as an outsider in the microfinance department, in microfinance industry, from the human resource point of view, besides the attrition, poaching, skill gaps, and other points that have been highlighted just now, I've also seen a sort of an absence of a sense of loyalty, a sense of commitment and sincerity, a sense of a value system that is missing in the human resources. And that is one reason why I've seen, I'm often, troubled with the problems that many of the employees of the microfinance people have run away with money, branch managers have frauded, and some of the EDOs have run away with money. Please help us. So that is where, the law enforcement part comes in. What I really need to feel, really feel is that microfinance as an industry need to invest more resources in developing a better value system for these employees. Madam Purvi spoke about KYC in the previous session, very nicely spoken, and today also. But let's know your employees also. Do you know your employees very well? Do you have a due diligence with regard to your employees? I don't think so. You're just in a hurry to hire and then put him onto the job. Paisa law, loan bato. That sort of a tendency really need to improve a bit. We need to develop these boys, youngsters, into a very fine human capital to take over the Indian story future.
Yes.
And that the only way out is to train them well, behavioral training, and most of all, give them a sense of loyalty, a sense of belonging, a commitment to your organization. Why is it that a Tata man never leaves Tata? He doesn't move on to Reliance or Adani or Vedanta, only because he knows he is a part of Tata family. He's not a part of any group. So make him a part of your family, and I'm sure he will not leave you, and this attrition and poaching, all these problems will be automatically sorted out.
Agree.
It's a tedious process, but I'm sure it will happen. Thank you if you're really putting more efforts. Thank you
No,
so much.
fair point. I think culture building, engagement, and inclusivity is something that has to be taken up by the
Sohal,
organization.
I just want to add a point to that. Sohal,
Yes.
if we can just add a point to what he's raised.
Oh, yeah.
We do a program called Family Connect for our employees in our organization, where the manager has to mandatorily visit the house of the family along with a watch, some gift that we give, and take a picture with the family. So we're trying to do things which work towards the direction. Yeah. The attrition increase has been very rapid in the last few months, so all of us are forced to adapt to the environment. So I hope many more companies will start doing this.
Something like I just want to add one more thing. We have a program called Celebrating Motherhood. So someone who is going on a maternity leave, when they give birth to a baby, the nearby branch will go and give a gift of motherhood to that family and celebrate that. So there are a lot of employment engagement program we can have.
Yeah, I think the last question there, I think we are running out of time. Yes, sir.
Sure. So the question is basically for the three practitioners essentially. One aspect of the attrition is as the smaller organization tries to grow bigger, have you personally seen in your own organization the change in the attrition? That's one. I mean, when you were relatively small, the attrition were low, and now that you have grown to a certain stage, whether the attrition has actually reflect what the study shows, number one. Number two, on the male-female employees, are there any difference rate of attrition where in female it is slightly lesser, male it is slightly lower, or vice versa? Are there any sort of observations in your own particular organizations?
Yes, George.
As far as ESAF Bank is concerned, thank you for those questions. Attrition, male, female, attrition rate of attrition, last year we had an attrition of 28%. Now this year we have targeted for 20%. So that is after maybe 2 quarters, it is almost at par. So we are almost maintaining this 20%. That is, so there is a reduction. So we have done a lot of things with regard to induction, training and other things. As far as the second point is very, very important. As far as the gender combination is concerned, we have seen there is less attrition in female. So we are maintaining almost 35 to 30, I mean 35 is to 65 kind of a, ratio. And we have seen that there is a reduction in among the ladies.
I think when you're hiring women employees, you're hiring within the local geographies also, right? Unlike the portability of a microfinance employee has been a feature. You hire from a different district and post him in another district. That's been the typical model which all of us in the industry have followed for probably 20 plus years, right? So women, it's very difficult to do that. A lot of women are hired where they are hired. You end up hiring them locally. So obviously retention will be better because that's distance from home is one of the largest factors for attrition. So we see lower attrition in women. But as a company, we have a policy of hiring even male employees within 30 kilometers, right? So it's exactly the same again there.
Thanks, Jagadish. Thanks, George. So thanks a lot for the question. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks a lot for being a patient audience. And thank you for all my panelists for giving all the great ideas that we discussed. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Sohan. Thank you, panelists, for this insightful discussion. Now I'll invite Mr. Modak. Sir. Now I'll invite our board member, Mr. Ganesh Modak, to facilitate our members, speakers. Thank you everyone for patiently listening to this session. Our next session is plenary 2, which is on the regulatory framework, and it will be held in the middle hall.